let's take a look, see here. This, what I'm holding in my hand is a meter, and if you could draw kind of a smaller scaled one on a piece of paper so that we can talk about that. This thing here, this is 1 meter. A little arrow here, 1 meter. My little meter stick, oh, it's pretty close to a meter stick there. Give you a chance to get that drawn there. The nice thing about the metric system is that it always groups things in tens, okay? So if you take a meter and cut it into 10 equal pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, okay? Each one of these pieces here, let me know what those are called. We don't use it very often. They probably use it more in Europe. They probably have. We just don't use it. It's not one of the more popular measurements we use, isn't it? It's a what?
I think this is wrong, but a kilometer?
Nope. That's having 1,000 meters. That's like our mile. This one here is called a decimeter. Okay, we don't use it very often in our thing. It's about, you can see it right here, it's about that big. There are 10 of them in a meter. I can't get this to write right there. Okay, there are 10 decimeters in a meter. Okay. Then, if you take each decimeter and cut it into 10 equal pieces, that one we use a lot. What is that one called? Michael? Nope. You're getting close though. It is a centimeter. Okay? And in a meter, there are 100 centimeters. By the way, a centimeter is about the width of probably your pointy finger or close to that. That's about 1 centimeter. Okay? And then, and I'll do this just because I can, if you take a centimeter and cut each one of those into 10 equal pieces, now I'll blow it back down so it's relatively small. You can't even see it there, sorry. Each one of those centimeters is called a, who was going to say it? That's the millimeter. Okay, and if we're talking in a meter, there are 1,000. You can't see it on there, but a millimeter is really not as big as 1,000 millimeters. And the way to remember that, kids, we have words that start with these that mean that. For example, decimeter, a decade. It comes with that same prefix. A decade is 10 years. 100 centimeters, century is 100 years. Or a cent. There's 100 cents in a dollar. A milli, and people get this mixed up because they think, well, that's million. No, milli, like a millennium, is 1,000 years. So there's 1,000 millimeters, 100 centimeters, 10 decimeters in one of these meters here. And a millimeter, I heard a bunch of you going thinking how small it is. It's about the width of a pencil lead. It's not really that super small. Pencil lead, not the whole pencil. It's the point of a pencil. Okay, for those of you that use regular pencils like I like to, like Emily does. Okay, the tip right here, that's about a millimeter. Not when to sharpen, you don't want to go to a complete point, but that right there, she's pretty close to a millimeter right there. Okay, and then they're going to ask you some questions with this. For example, 40 centimeters is how many decimeters? Okay, so there's your question. You probably want to look back at your notes. 40 40 centimeters equals how many decimeters? Okay, well, if you look at this, here were our decimeters, here's our centimeters. Remember, a centimeter, there's 10 centimeters in a decimeter, so that's 10, 20, 30, 40. 40 centimeters would be how many decimeters, Jacob? 4. And that's why you kind of have your notes there so you can see that. Or another question they ask you is, I don't know if I like that question. I suppose, here's a question they ask you, and this one we're going to have to talk a little bit about. It says, we're just going to call him Ed. Ed's height is 1 meter plus 35 centimeters tall. How tall is he? How tall is he in meters? And here's kind of the nice thing about the metric system right here. Okay, in other words, he's 1 meter tall, 1 meter tall, plus another 35 centimeters, which puts him right about here. I don't know, must be a shorter kind of person. The book says, how tall is he in meters, though? And here's the nice thing about this, okay? In metric system, when you switch from one unit of measurement to another unit of measurement, you don't have to do any calculating or figuring, you just have to move decimal places. Because that's what a decimal is. Remember we talked about number lines being a tenth? This decimeter, a decimeter is 1/10 of a meter. A decimeter equals 1/10 of a meter. A centimeter, how many centimeters are in a meter? 100. So 1 centimeter is 1/100th of a meter. A millimeter, how many millimeters are in a meter? 1,000, so it is 1,000th of a meter. And watch how easy this is. The answer to this question, because I need to change 35 centimeters in meters is how much? It's a lot. It's just like writing 35 cents in dollar form. In dollars, we can talk about 35 cents like this, but that's in cent form. If I change it to a dollar sign, to dollars, what do? How do you write 35 cents in dollars? When you go to a store, they don't put 35 cents on it. They put, Grace?
They do minus the cent sign, dollar sign, 0, decimal.
Right. They just put a dollar. They just put a decimal in front of the 35 cents. That's the same thing you would do with meters to centimeters. If he's 1 meter 35 centimeters, that means he's 1 whole meter plus 0.35. That's 35 centimeters tall. 1.35 meters tall. Same thing, metric system is just like using money. If you want to change, if I said change 42 centimeters into meters, 42 centimeters equals how many meters? It's the same thing as saying change 42 cents into dollar form, because it's 100th of that. So where would the decimal go in my answer? If I were changing this into dollars, it would be what? 0.42. And that's all you have to do. Okay, from centimeters to meters is that. It'll take a little getting used to,